the Leaf Academy studios, this is Tuesdays with Schwartz, the podcast all about success. Every Tuesday, I'll bring you one success story, then break it down, and also give you tips and resources you can use to start your own success journey. This week, I'm going to break down the success story of the world's most famous marketer, Gary Vaynerchuk, aka Gary Vee. But before we begin, let me introduce myself first. Hi, I'm the school doc, but you can just call me Doc for short. If you're new to this podcast or this channel, I'm a recognized K-12 expert and also a 21st century skills expert. I wrote the groundbreaking book, Disrupting Education, which outlines how to transform your local school into a 21st century learning environment. If you care about students or teachers, then you should read this book. Simply go to Amazon and type in Disrupting Education. This week, I'm focused on the success story of Gary Vee. He's a CEO, an entrepreneur, and also a trendsetter. He's the CEO of both VaynerMedia and also VaynerX. And at the time of this recording, Gary Vee's net worth is around $200 million. So how did Gary Vee build a mega fortune? And more importantly, what can you learn from his journey? And as you know, all stories have a beginning. So let's take a closer look at where Gary Vee came from and how he built himself up into one of the world's most trusted entrepreneurs. If you didn't know this, Gary Vee was born in Belarus in 1978, which was part of the former Soviet Union. His family, along with thousands of other families during the 1980s, escaped the Soviet Union to immigrate to the United States for one reason. They were Jewish. Yeah, it was illegal to practice Judaism under the Iron Curtain, and so thousands of families from the Soviet Union left everything behind to escape the oppressive and tyrannical government of the USSR. Gary's family first arrived in Queens, New York, but eventually they settled in Edison, New Jersey, a quiet suburb of New York City. Gary's success story could not begin if it wasn't for his own father's determination and hustle. Gary's father started working in a liquor store and saved every penny he earned in order to purchase his own liquor store. And as a young man, Gary worked in that store bagging ice for $2 an hour. But after college, Gary went back to work for his family business. At the time, the liquor store was doing around $3 million a year in annual revenue. But Gary wanted to try out new ideas and strategies. One of his ideas was to start a TV show on the internet called Wine Library TV. And every week he would broadcast the show that would talk about wine and how to pair wine with different foods. The show was a huge success, and because of new regulations that allowed liquor to be sold through the internet, Gary Vee was able to help his dad's business grow from $3 million a year in annual revenue to close to $60 million a year in annual revenue. Not bad, right? But working for his dad wasn't what he wanted to do with the rest of his life, so he struck out on his own and created VaynerMedia, which is a full-service media consulting agency that helps brands create and build their media presence. Like any small business starting out, the beginning is the toughest part. The year was 2009. The world was changing. It was President Obama's first year in office, and the internet and social media was gaining traction. In fact, the first iPhone was only released back in 2007. So let's take a pause for a second in this story. Are you just starting out? Are you trying to build a company or a career and don't know the answer to this question? Where am I going? It's easy to look at Gary Vee and say, oh, well, of course he's successful. That's the problem. Gary Vee has built a mega million-dollar business and brand. What you're seeing is the end result. You're not seeing the beginning of the journey, and that's your dilemma. You're at the beginning of your journey, which means you need to know what to do right now. So stop worrying about the outcome. You're not there yet. If you remember last week's episode, I talked about the roadmap for success. Here it is again. This is an academic concept that I developed back in 2011. The reason this map helps people reach long-term success is because it reminds you where you are. In 2009, Gary Vee was at the beginning of his roadmap. And what makes Gary unique is that he didn't obsess about the end goal. He obsessed about the journey. He obsessed about walking the path forward. Which brings us to the most important question. How did Gary Vee build a $200 million valuation? And the answer happens to be it started with speaking engagements. Yes, Gary's first speaking engagement was at Web 2.0 Expo in September of 2008. Gary admits this public speech led to the creation of his first book, Crush It. In 2008, no one knew who Gary Vaynerchuk was. No one. Can you picture that today? But more importantly, are you in the same position? Does anyone know who you are right now? Do you have a big social media following, or are you just starting out? Right now, Gary Vee has 4.25 million subscribers on YouTube. How many do you have? On Instagram, I have just under 900 followers, and my YouTube channel is just getting started. Here's my point. If you obsess over the number of followers you have, you will be miserable. And Gary tells people in his speeches, it's about value. What value do you bring to the table? People will only follow you if you bring value to their life. That's it. Gary was focused on bringing value. In fact, he obsessed over it. Because of Gary Vee's relentless pursuit of value add, he started hustle culture on YouTube. So what's the takeaway? What can you learn from Gary Vee's success journey? In order to answer that question, we need to take a second look at the roadmap for success. There are 6 stages on this roadmap: vision, goals, action plan, life obstacles, new skills, and reaching your dreams or the finish line. Gary Vee has already reached the finish line for his business. And if that's true, then why does Gary continue to work so hard? And there's 2 parts to that answer. The first part of the answer is that he has created a new success journey to follow. And if you want to know the second part of the answer, I'll reveal that to you at the end of this podcast. But before you learn the answer, here are my school doc tips. Tip number 1, stop obsessing over the finish line. Let's take a page from Gary Vee. You need to become obsessed with what you do and how much value you bring to other people. The outcome will happen eventually. If you bring value to people every single day, people are going to eventually notice you and also follow you. Why wouldn't they? Every single person in the world is looking for an edge in life. So if you're the one giving them that edge, you will become successful. This podcast breaks down success stories every single week. That means every single week you will get expert advice and consulting from me for free. Gary Vee provides his clients with the same level of consulting for tens of thousands of dollars. You get the same value simply by hitting the subscribe button. See my point now? The truth is this podcast is growing every single week, and that's because I bring tremendous value to my listeners by breaking down success stories in a way that helps you be more successful in your own life. Tip number 2, know where you are on the journey. Let's take a third look at the roadmap for success. Here's what you need to know. I developed this academic concept when I was a principal of a school. And the reason I developed this roadmap for success is simply because all of my students were lost in life. That's right, they had no idea how to go from high school graduation to building a career or wealth. They couldn't see the journey in front of them. That's why I created this roadmap, to help them see the journey. Do you have the same problem? Are you struggling to see the journey in front of you? If so, use this roadmap. It will be a huge help. So here are my final thoughts. Every week I take a look at one hugely successful person after another. As I do research into their success journey, it's fascinating to see how they went from nothing and built themselves up into world-famous icons. I've looked at Elon Musk, Deion Sanders, Taylor Swift, and Beyonce, to name a few. The reason people follow this podcast is simple. I give people tips and insights they can use in their own life. I'm not glorifying celebrities, but showing people how they can use those success journeys to build their own. After all, this is the podcast all about success. And that's what you need to know. If you want to be successful in the 21st century, then you need to listen to this podcast every single week. I promise you will learn more from me than you will in 4 years of high school or 4 years of college. What you may not know is that I became the first superintendent in the world to research and develop a 21st century skills curriculum. That was back in 2011, and since then, hundreds of individual principals and schools have begun using my academic concepts and theories to help kids pursue their dreams. And if you care about students and teachers, you should read my book, Disrupting Education, first, and then go to a school board meeting and talk about how to fix your local school. Or better yet, get the PTA, PTO to buy a copy of my book for every single school board member and every teacher in your town. The more you know, the more likely you are to fix a broken system. What I'm doing every week with this podcast is exposing the gap between what you learned in school and what you should have learned in school. And as you can see, it's not that complicated. There's only a few concepts you need to learn if you want to be successful in life, and here they are. The roadmap for success, the performance formula, the fundamentals of 21st century skills, how the 21st century works, the rules of the 21st century, and the success playbook. The minute our school system shifts focus to these academic concepts, more and more kids will be successful in life. And not only that, but the minute you learn these concepts as well, you can improve your own life. And that's why I'm here. That's why I've been broadcasting this podcast for the last 3 years. I simply want to help you find success. You want to know the final answer to the Gary Vee question? Why is Gary Vee working so hard if he already reached the finish line? Die-hard Gary Vee fans might already know the answer, so here it is. Gary Vee wants to own the New York Jets. That's right, Gary wants to own the Jets. The problem is that Gary doesn't have enough net worth to make that happen. That is why Gary Vee created a new success journey. But here's a special bonus for everyone that stayed to the end of this podcast. Why don't we use the roadmap for success to show what Gary Vee will need to do in order to reach his dreams? And maybe if you see how Gary Vee would use this roadmap, you can see how you can use it for yourself. Let's take one more look at the roadmap together. So what does Gary need to do? The first answer is placing Gary at the beginning of the journey, right here. Gary has $200 million in net worth. And what's the finish line? It's over here. And in order for Gary to reach the finish line, he needs $2 billion. That's right, $2 billion with a capital B. So how would I help Gary Vee if he was one of my clients? Let's go over the 6 stages of success. 1. Question: what's Gary's vision? Answer: to own the Jets. 2. What is Gary's goal? Answer: to make $2 billion. 3. Question: what is Gary's action plan? Answer: to build new businesses and invest his money into new companies that can 10x his net worth. 4. What are Gary's life obstacles? Answer: the pandemic shut down his business for a full year. What you need to realize is that every human being is going to run into life obstacles. You cannot avoid them. It's just a part of life. But when you learn new skills, it makes it easier to jump over those hurdles. 5. Question: what new skills does Gary Vee need to learn? Answer: he is learning how to become an angel investor. But what else should Gary Vee learn? Answer: 21st century success skills. And this is the gap in our school system. The truth is that we should be teaching these academic concepts and skills in school, but we aren't. And that's why life is so difficult in 2023. That's the reason why millions of people have no access to economic opportunities. The problem isn't capitalism or democracy or any other excuse. The problem is education. I know high school English teachers hate me when I say this, but you don't need to learn Shakespeare if you don't teach kids 21st century skills first. So here's what Gary Vee and everyone else in America needs to learn: the roadmap for success, the performance formula, the fundamentals of 21st century skills, how the 21st century works, the rules of the 21st century, and the success playbook. When you learn all 6 of these concepts and skills, it becomes easier to build a career, build wealth, and also reach the finish line. That is what you need to know. This is the missing link. When you learn all 6 of these concepts, you find the key to unlocking your full potential. Right now, I'm working on a young entrepreneur program for summer 2024. If that sounds interesting to you or you want to learn more, all you need to do is subscribe to my free newsletter and also follow me on socials. It's that easy. want to thank you for spending time with me this week. I hope you learned a lot from the Gary Vee story. If I bring value to you, please hit the subscribe button and start following me on socials. If this happens to be your first episode of Tuesdays with Schwartz, then I highly encourage you to go back to the playlist on YouTube and watch all my previous episodes. Don't forget to take notes so you can start building your own success journey. This is your host, the School Doc, and I'll see you next week.
Every now and then you lose in life. What you're risking when you roll the dice. Now I'm gonna place the bet on me. I do believe I